Now they're showing you that slope here in the first line by writing it as 20 over 30. But of course 20 over 30 is a reducible fraction that can be reduced down to 2 over 3. So we now have m with slope in our point slope equation. Now the next thing they're telling us is that the line must pass through the point 0, 18. Where does that come from? Well, what they're saying here is before that the coaster has even moved forward, it's already 18 feet above the ground. So it hasn't moved forward yet, but when it starts, it's right here at 18. Well, that's the point 0, 18, of course, because I haven't moved over on the x-axis, but I'm up 18 on the y-axis. And that's great information because that's what I need to fill in my x block and my y block here to write my equation. So, if we come over here to the x block, really can't screw the x block up here. Because how am I going to make 0 with this x value that I just found, 0? Well, it doesn't matter. I can pretty much write anything. I can write x minus 0, I can write x plus 0, 0 plus 0, 0 minus 0. Either way, the result is 0. So when I write x minus 0 here, you're going to see in a second, that's just going to simplify to just being x. Because, of course, adding or subtracting 0 won't change the x value. Over here with the y side, we're going to do exactly what we did just a minute ago. If I change this y to 18, which is what we said the y value is over here, how am I going to make this block go to 0? Well, if I write minus 18, 18 minus 18 is how I'm going to get this to go to 0. So indeed, this left side is going to be y minus 18. And that's where we come up with the equation y minus 18 equals 2/3 x. That's the point slope form of the equation that the roller coaster is riding along. So now what they've asked us to do, now that we have the equation, they want us to figure out the height of the coaster after it travels 150 feet forward. Now the tricky part is not working with this, it's making sure we plug it in for the right value. Remember, as far as talking about moving forward goes, that's on the x-axis here, because the y-axis is how much it's moved up. So when they're telling me it's moved 150 feet forward, what they're really telling me is they want me to change x into 150, which is what you can see they're doing down there. And once we change x into 150, we're supposed to solve the equation. So when I change x into 150, I'm doing 2/3 of 150, which is 100. So this is y minus 18 is 100. Add 18 to both sides, and you get y equals 118, which is now how high the roller coaster is after it's traveled 150 feet forward. It's now 118 feet in the air. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the concluding examples here. Number 1 is asking you to use the point slope form of the equation to identify a point the line passes through and the slope of the line. So we've got y minus 2 equals 2/3 times x plus 3. So remember, that thing that's in front of the x, in front of that x block of parentheses, that's always your slope. Well, my slope here just says 2/3. Now, even though that's a fraction, it doesn't matter. We're not doing anything else with it. We're just identifying. If we had to graph it, that just simply means we'd go up 2 and write 3. Not a big deal. All right. Now we've got to identify the point that the line passes through. So what we want to do is we want to look at our x block for the x result and look at the y block for the y result. Remember, in each block, I'm going to help figure out what makes this go to 0, because that's going to be my solution. So if I look at the x block, I'd say what number plus 3 is going to make that go to 0? Well, negative 3 plus 3 is going to make that go to 0. So the x value here is going to be negative 3. In the y block over here, I'm going to say, how am I going to make the y set go to 0? Well, if I make this y to 2, 2 minus 2 is 0. And that's why my y value is 2. And that's how I end up with negative 3, 2. Remember, points are always written x, y. Number 2, write the point slope form of the equation with the given slope that passes through the indicated point. The line with the slope of 2 passing through 2, negative 2. So remember, points are always written as y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. That's the general form of the point slope form of a line. But we already have the slope. That's the very first thing they gave us here. The slope is going to be 2. Now, as far as filling in the x block here, The x value they gave me here is 2. So I've got to make this set equal to 2. Well, if I change this into 2, what am I going to have to write here to make this set go to 0? Well, I make this 2, it's going to have to be 2 minus 2, because that's how I'm going to make this go to 0. So when I change x into 2, it means this bottom part, or the right part rather, is minus 2. So it's x minus 2. Notice, in all these equations we've been talking about, the things that stay the same all the time are x and y. When I write the equation, x and y always just say x and y. It doesn't matter if I'm talking about standard form, or point slope, or slope-intercept form. X and y are the things that have always said x and y. That's why x and y here are still saying x and y. Over here with the y value, since my y value is negative 2, I change this into negative 2. Negative 2 minus what number is going to get me to 0? Well, if I write negative 2 minus 2, that's actually going to get me to negative 4. So that's not going to work. But if I write negative 2 minus negative 2, which is really the same as adding 2, negative 2 plus 2 does get me to 0. So down here I'm going to write y plus 2. There's your equation. Matches exactly with what the solution that was pre-printed on the screen.